order. Meeting of the Borough Assembly here on this November 19th, 2018. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Bob?
Here.
Jeff?
Here.
Kurt?
Kurt is excused.
Mark?
The mayor is excused.
Brandy? Here. Jay?
Here.
Haley?
Here. With that, we've got 5 members here tonight. Let's stand for the voluntary pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have no minutes to approve this evening, so that brings us to amendment and approval of the meeting agenda. So do you entertain a motion to approve or amend? Member Lynn.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add an agenda item under discussion related to finances and budget. If we could, a little bit of update on our meeting last week at AML as part of this. If I could, thank you.
You bet. I'll put that under Assembly Discussion Item C. And if I forget, please cut me off and make sure we get it. Any other amendments? Yes, Member Michi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to put under council discussion items the request we had at the last meeting to change some of the wording in the meeting agenda from visitors' views, unrelated and related to agenda items, to persons' views related to agenda items. And we'll just talk about that just for under council discussion item.
Okay. And for those listening on the radio at home, Member Woolhooter has joined us. If the clerk could please note that. And Member Michi, I will cite that under discussion items. We'll call that one D.
Sure.
And then we'll call it visitors' views related to the agenda, for lack of a better term. Any other amendments to the agenda? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved by Member Michi and seconded by Member Lynn to approve the agenda as amended. The clerk, I'll just call all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. That brings us down to public hearings. Public hearing, this is for 18-366, public hearing for ordinance 2018-18, an ordinance amending the Petersburg Municipal Code by repealing titles 18, subdivision, and 19, zoning, and adopting a new Borough Development Code. Is anyone in the audience care to testify in regard to that in this evening's public hearing? Step to the microphone, state your name and who you represent. And for all those testifying tonight, you'll be given 5 minutes of testimony, if you so choose to use that time, and as always, be civil and respectful. The floor is yours.
My name is Tor Benson. I'm here representing myself, but I'm on the Planning and Zoning Committee. And I just had a couple of comments, just rereading through. I guess I reread it as an entirety now. And one thing I did notice, I don't know if anyone has it in front of them, but on 2-39, I guess, the page number, for floor area on a detached auxiliary dwelling, it basically has it so that it's a maximum of 800 square feet, and then depending on what the main dwelling is, it depends on how big the auxiliary dwelling can be. And so I didn't understand exactly why that was the case, because we already have a lot coverage percentage. And so if the main dwelling and the accessory dwelling don't exceed that, then why do we need a secondary percentage? So it just seems like if you have a main dwelling and then you allow for 800 square foot accessory dwelling, then there shouldn't be any need for percentages based on the primary dwelling's size. And to go along with that, I also thought that like a lot of times in this community, people build a smaller house maybe to start with, and then they build a larger house later. So if your primary dwelling at the time is only 800 square feet because you plan to use that accessory dwelling later, and then you want to build your primary residence of 1,600 square feet, then you can't do that the way it's set up now anyway. And so it seems like for simplicity, in my mind, just to do 800 square foot accessory dwelling and have it on the understanding anyway that you can build a primary residence later that's larger than that. As long as one of the two structures, I guess, is under 800 square feet. One other comment I did have also, it's on page 2-42. It says, this is the caretaker dwelling also. It says you can have one unit, and a maximum of one caretaker dwelling unit is allowed per parcel or business entity. And so I didn't understand the business entity portion, because if you have one lot with like a warehouse and you have, I don't know, I have 3 businesses in the warehouse, can I build 3 caretaker dwellings? And to me, that wasn't intent anyway in my mind, because you probably had the intent of just having one. So I didn't understand why the business entity comment was there anyway. 232. Another comment I did have is also on page 232, the floor plan for a manufactured home dwelling or single-family lot, and it has to be, I guess, Part B, Section 1. It says a manufactured home shall be multi-sectional, have an enclosed floor area of not less than 1,000 square feet. And so again, I didn't understand why there's a square footage on that. I don't know. It seems like you should be able to live in a house that's 600 square feet. I don't know. Like I say, I guess I didn't have a chance to talk with Liz either. I was out fishing, and now she's on vacation, so I didn't get to check any of these questions I had with her before I came to you guys, but just figured to get them out there in any case. Sorry, one too many pages.
No problem. As you're looking for those pages, Mr. Benson, when Ms. Cabrera returns, I highly encourage you to follow up with her in regards to that, because we have several more public comment periods and another public hearing before we get to the final reading too. So,
Yeah.
Send her an email, too.
or send her an email to put it on the record if you like.
Sounds good.
Continue. Go ahead.
I did have one more question, I guess, on the vacation rental and the Airbnb as well. And when I look at them, it looks like, I guess the bed and breakfast as an accessory use is the only subsection in that that's different than the vacation rental. And so basically it says, I don't know, can be a single-family dwelling, one unit of a duplex, or accessory dwelling. And so that's the only distinction between the two, and I was wondering if that's the only thing, can we just combine them? Like, I don't know if there's a difference or not, but... Yeah, I believe that's the majority of my comments. I guess the only thing I'd want to say is that, yeah, I'm in favor of like the overhaul in general, and think it's improvement. I mean, it's a complicated document, it takes a while to like wade through, and usually like spent like 35 minutes on it, and I'd take a break. But overall, I think it makes things pretty clear, and it seems to make sense to me. So I'd be in support of approval.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Benson. Is there anyone else here in the audience who'd like to testify in this public hearing? Yes, you,
I
sir.
didn't really have a comment, but I thought
please-
maybe there'd be a zoning map.
Please step
change map or
to the mic, sir, and state your name and who you represent if you'd like to give testimony. Thank you, sir.
My name is Dave Ellis. I'm representing myself, and I thought maybe I'd see a map with changes on it, or there'd be a handout of a copy of the thing to look at, either here or take home for a couple of days. Where do I find that?
I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Manager or Clerk Akins, on the Borough website, all that information is provided there?
It's all only online?
We could get
Sorry, to the mayor. It's also hard copies in Liz's office and at the library. Hard copies at the library and also in Liz Cabrera's office during working hours, and all of it's online as well.
Because in her office is moved where now?
Sorry, she's not there at the moment, but she's downstairs on the first floor, kind of off to the left of the elevator,
Good. And she'll be back?
right after the holiday.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, yeah.
We could certainly drop off one tomorrow.
Oh, I can find one if I can get one at the library tomorrow. That
Yeah,
would be.
but if you needed one to look at and draw on and make notes on, we could certainly drop one off at your house.
Oh. Yeah, but I'm probably taking off tomorrow for the holiday too, so.
Be something for you to work on.
Yeah.
Digest later.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'd like to have one. I can pick one up somewhere. If you-
Yeah, we'll get one to you tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis.
Yeah, thank you.
You bet. Anybody else in the audience like to testify in the public hearing for ordinance 18-366? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Benson and Mr. Ellis. That brings us to bid awards. 18-365, Harbor Office Lock Project Bid Award. Harbor Master Wallen is recommending award of the bid to Tamco Inc. for a total bid amount not to exceed $188,500. I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Member Mucci, seconded by Member Lynn. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Member Mucci.
Hey, so has this bid gone to the Harbor Board? I'm just trying to sort it out.
No. I mean, the project did, but
Okay.
the bid hasn't.
Okay.
Anything further, Member Mucci? Yes.
So is this something that would normally go to the,
No.
okay.
You guys get to make all the decisions. If you had trouble with it, they're your advisory board. So if you had questions with it, you could send it their way.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. Further discussion? All right, will the clerk call the roll, please?
Hey, Jeff,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Kurt,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Brandy.
Yes.
And it passes unanimously. That brings us to number 7, visitors' views related to the agenda. Anyone in the audience care to testify or care to speak to visitors' views related to the agenda? Seeing none, that brings us to visitors' views unrelated to tonight's agenda. Anybody like to speak? Yes, either one of you go ahead and state your name, who you represent, and feel free to proceed.
Good evening, I'm John Hoag. I represent myself and Don Koenigs. I have emailed you folks some written statements which I need to amend, and since this is being broadcast, I think I'll read from this, and those of you who read it, bear with me. Those of you who know both of us recognize that Don Koenigs and I are far apart on the political spectrum. However, we both agree that we do not like the current way that assembly members are elected. Normally, a candidate for office runs for a specific position, and the Petersburg method of having multiple candidates run for however many positions are up for election, I believed at the time, is fairly unique and utilized by very few municipalities. I now stand corrected that apparently an informal survey of Southeast is a number of small municipalities do use this method. My opinion on this issue hasn't changed, and those of you know Don, when he makes up his mind, you can count on Don. It is easier for a voter to decide whom one wants to vote for, or some instances whom one wants to vote against, than it is to decide which 2 candidates out of 5 or more should be elected to positions that are up for election. An incumbent candidate can discuss their voting record, and someone running against that person can explain why they would have voted differently. As it is now, every vote for every other candidate than the one who is your first choice is a vote against your first choice. In at least 2 previous elections, I have heard of candidates urging folks to vote only for them and not for anyone else. Voters should cast ballots for every position that is up for election without concern that they are diluting their vote for their number one choice. We drafted an amendment to the existing code to change this system. We are not satisfied with either the existing code or this draft as setting out as clearly as possible the current practice or a proposed change, and hope that the Assembly refers this to its attorney for review and schedule public hearings to receive testimony about it. My personal philosophy on drafting is it should pass the any darn fool test. And if I have to read something 5 times and then need help to find out where the language is, I think there's a problem. One reason why this change change will be important is that due to the current political landscape in the state, Petersburg may see drastic cuts in the state contributions both to it and to the school system. You as assembly members may have to make hard choices as to what municipal services to cut tail or which to eliminate altogether. The voters should be able to have clear choices in future elections as to whom to vote for and whom to vote against. As a final comment, we urge you to each recognize that reasonable people can disagree on important issues. In many cases, there are no right answers but alternatives, each of which can be painful. Do not take disagreements with your fellow members personally and work through them for all of us. Thank you for considering this idea.
Thank you, Mr. Hogue.
Question for Mr. Hogue. Down under your proposed your code, John, you talk about on the ballot, let me see if I can find it here real quick. On the ballot between the aforementioned phase and the names of the candidates shall be placed the instruction, vote for one or vote for two, as the case may be. You were thinking that if there were two positions up, you'd vote, I'm not...
Okay, what I did was that I confused more than one person on this. And I'll apologize for not spelling out because this got put together rather fast. What you're seeing in on the lighter print is the existing code section. That is the 2.34, I think it's like 01B, something like that. What I suggested for the new way of doing this is in the bolder print at the bottom, which is on a normal year, 2 positions will be up for election. If somebody resigns, you may have 3 because the new position has to stand election. So what I'd like to do is the clerk to assign a position number for each position that's up for election, 1 and 2 being the norm. Then the candidates run for a position by number. In other words, if you are in position 1 and up for election, you rerun for position 1, or you say enough of this and go back to Kupernoff, you know. And then somebody else for position 2. And so that as a voter, you can vote for position 1 and 2 without worried about diluting your vote. And hopefully the person that's elected will have a clear statement that, yes, the majority of the folks, or at least a good plurality, if there's more than one person running, voted for me.
Can I answer your question, Member Lynn?
Yep, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hogue. Yeah, go ahead. Member Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just to clarify too, so John, if 3 people wanted to run, then that third person would have to decide if he's voting for or running for seat 1 or seat 2 in your case.
3 people can obviously run for seat 1.
Yes.
And you still have a plurality issue, but at least it narrows the field a bit.
Right, yeah, great. That's a good idea.
Yes, Member Mucci.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I appreciate this, but I don't understand, and we've talked about it a couple times, I still don't understand what we're trying to accomplish here. I mean, in this last go-round, we had 5 people running for 2 spots, and all those folks had a chance to talk about what they thought was important and what they didn't think was important. And what I don't want to see is I don't want it to get any more partisan than politics are statewide. I mean, I think we have an opportunity to, if you have 5 folks running for a seat, those folks get a chance to tell the community what's important to them. I think I guess I need more specifics on, and we can talk about this at the next meeting if we bring it up as an agenda item, but I'd just like to see where the issues are. I didn't know there were issues that one candidate was saying, don't vote for anybody else other than me. I didn't know that, maybe that's out there, but I didn't know that was the norm.
Well, either way can obviously function well. Sure. It's just that our thought that was, when you say partisan, luckily these are nonpartisan positions.
Sure.
But in the end, to me it's more important, especially when hard choices have to be made and cuts are going to have to be made, that people say yes or no, that I support what this person did, and it's not diluted by picking 2 out of 5. You choose who you think the best candidate is for a specific position and then for the next position. So.
Thank you, Mr. Hogue. If we can carry further discussion on if it comes up as an action item.
Okay. Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
I was wondering, so you're looking to change how the voting's done. I know there's one way called single transferable vote, and it changes so that it seems like you're worried about votes being wasted, or like say you voted for 2 people and those 2 people, neither of them won?
No, I think not exactly. My concern, and at least what Don expressed to me also, is we think there should be clearer choices for vote for A or B, or A versus B, C, than try to pick 2 out of 5 people. I know when I first came to Petersburg and looked at a ballot and said, who are all these folks, it was tougher for me to get the information that made me comfortable voting. Because sometimes it's easier to say, all right, I know what this person stands for, and I know what this person stands for, and then I've got a clear choice. But sorting out a number of people, I think, dilutes sometimes having clear choices on what you want in a candidate and what you want them to be doing on the positions that are come up. And times that are easy may not matter. You're not going to have times that are easy, so I salute you folks.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan. If this comes up as an action item, we can carry the discussion further. Anyone else with visitors' views unrelated to tonight's agenda? Yes, please proceed, Sonny.
Hi, my name's Sunny Rice. I guess I'm representing a ragtag group of folks working on a project funded by the Petersburg Community Foundation dealing with marine plastics and marine debris. I feel it's of importance to the entire community and your work, particularly on the Assembly and with our Public Works Department. So I just wanted to give you an update of where we are right now with this project, and to take this opportunity to let the public know that we had a presentation a couple weeks ago that was sort of talked about the issue of marine debris and plastics at a local level, and we have bought the rights to screen a film called Plastic Ocean that will talk about it on a global level. So that's going to be at 7 p.m. on Thursday, November 29th in the Wright Auditorium. The film's an hour and 45 minutes long, and we are lucky to we'll be having a presentation by Gina Esposito, who works with the U.S. Forest Service, and when they are out doing field work on the islands in our general vicinity, they also pick up marine debris and trash, and so she'll be giving a presentation about what they've been finding. So I took the liberty of taking the information that the Borough sent out on Facebook, talking about how we can better clean up our recycling stream, and made a little slideshow that will show as people are walking into that, and I also wanted to offer that to the Assembly or the Borough if you wanted to use it in some other way as well. So I just wanted to let the community know. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Any other visitors' views unrelated to tonight's agenda? Seeing none, that brings us on to board, commission, and committee reports. We do not have any. Our consent agenda tonight consists of 2 items, 18-363 Joan Nye Family Restaurant 2019-2020 liquor license renewal, and 18-364 The Bottle Shop 2019/2020 liquor license renewal application. I would entertain a motion to approve both of these consent agenda items.
So move.
Second.
Been moved by Member Lynn and seconded by Member Morrell. Discussion. Clerk, call the roll, please.
All right. Bob?
Yes.
Brandy?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yep.
And those pass unanimously. No report of other officers. That brings us tonight to the mayor's report. Petersburg Borough is seeking letters of interest from qualified borough residents to serve our community by taking a seat on the SEPA Board of Directors. The Assembly will need to appoint one voting member and one alternate to the SEPA Board for calendar year 2019. Letters of interest may be submitted to the Borough Clerk via mail to P.O. Box 329, Petersburg, AK 99833, via email to dthompson@petersburgak.gov, or by delivering to the Clerk's office at 12 South Nordic Drive. Borough employee Ed Tagabon was awarded the Employee of the Year recognition by the President of the Alaska Association of Harbor Masters and Port Administrators at a recent conference. Congratulations, Ed. And I'm going to briefly read here for us is the letter of recommendation that Harbor Master Wallen wrote in support of Ed Tagabon for this award. In the spring of 2000, Mr. Ed Tagabon joined the Petersburg Harbor Department as the new office manager. Right from the start, Ed challenged the good old boys system and proceeded to implement changes such as making the harbor office a no-smoking environment and installing a computerized point-of-sale system. With skill and humor, he took on the challenge of teaching an aging staff the skills associated with operating a computer system. Ed is an exceptional employee and coworker. He's the backbone of the Petersburg Harbor team. He gives sound advice to his supervisors, to fellow staff, and customers who are seeking local knowledge on a vast array of issues. He assists management by keeping excellent records and a running tally of project plans that aid in budget development. Among Ed's many accomplishments, he worked to secure Homeland Security funding and oversaw the installation of an all-weather outdoor camera system that revolutionized security within the Petersburg Harbor. Many issues have been resolved by this visual monitoring system, and it has made the Petersburg Harbor facilities much more safe and secure. Many of the current AAHPA members met Eddie at the 2017 annual conference in Petersburg and appreciated his efforts at organizing and hosting that great event. The Petersburg Harbor Department is proud to nominate Mr. Ed Tagamon for the AAHPA Employee of the Year Award. He's epitome of what that stands for and clearly sets the standards high for fellow Harbor staff. Again, that's a letter of nomination that Harbor Master Wallen wrote for Ed Tagamon. And again, congratulations, Ed. All right. And there are still 2 more opportunities for public comment on the proposed development code at December 3rd and December 17th. Consideration of amendments and the third and final reading of the ordinance will be on the agenda for the December 17th meeting. With that, I'll pass it to you, Mr. Manager, for the manager's report.
Mr. Mayor, just one question.
Yes, Mr. Manager.
So when is the letter due for the SEPA board?
Let me pull that back up. Bear with me. Steve, do you have that information by chance?
No, I don't, sir.
All right, hang on. See if I've got that in my notes here, Member Mucci. And if not...
It's not in here. It's not.
No, I'm looking at my notes for that. I don't think I have that. Member Mucci, sorry, I do not have that information. We'll have to ask Clerk Thompson. Unless, Clerk Akins, do you have that information per chance?
I'm sure we can check right after the meeting and figure that out for you.
Does that work for you, Member Mucci?
Absolutely.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you.
You bet. All right, Steve.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Harbor staff continues to work with the Corps of Engineers on drafting the South Harbor dredging feasibility study. The second of 4 in-water surveys was just finished today, I believe. The harbor maintenance team spent last week redecking much of the North Harbor skiff float after receiving kind of long overdue the marine treated lumber that was ordered in early July, and it finally showed up, and they were able to get it done. The rest will be decked when the final order is received, hopefully in early spring. On the 14th of November, Harbor Maintenance and Piston Rudder took the large crane offline for servicing as it was scheduled. It will remain offline until the first of the year. The small crane will be operating during this time. Reed Brothers is busy installing a partially new float system at Kupernoff this week. Install includes new lane float and pilings. Thanks to the streets crew for our annual community tree and some of the decorations, thanks to Power and Light that they're working on, and Matt Briner as well. The Power and Light crew working on getting all the lights strung. Matt's, again, kind of the lead volunteer and helping with testing the light strings and supplying the strings to the work crew. So a couple more days and it'll be done and ready to turn on for Friday. The Decolonizing Alaska, which is a multimedia art exhibit featuring 30 Alaska artists, is on display at the library and museum until November 30th. The exhibit is sponsored by the Trading Union and the Petersburg Community Foundation. An application has been submitted for the Alaska State Library internship program. Our plan is to use the intern to perform a user experience analysis on the library to help improve our services in the summer of 2019. Library has received an Institute for Museum and Library Services basic grant to purchase material for the library's collection and host facilitated service planning with the board and staff in 2019. The grant is applied for in partnership with the Petersburg Indian Association. Wastewater staff started a schedule of regular monthly preventative maintenance on the municipal building sewer line to prevent any backups. The wastewater crew runs a small pressure water out to the street, and then building maintenance personnel flush the system to remove any buildup that was dislodged during the rotting of the line. This will be done every month until the line can be dug up and repaired in the spring. The process takes about 15 minutes for the rotting, and flushing lasts about an hour. And just reiterate, it's not a problem with this building. It has to do with what we think is a collapsed line out in the street, and can't get to it until better weather. Going Pine Slough Hydro Evaluation Project is ongoing. We have received the final draft of the condition assessment. Due to contents of the report describing the details of critical infrastructure, the executive summary and recommendation section are being provided to the Assembly for their general information. A controlled full copy of the 130-page report is in my office, and we'll keep it there for the moment. Anybody, Assembly members, are welcome to come in and read it at their leisure if you're interested. The entire Power and Light staff attended a safety training session on November 9th. The trainer covered many areas, including confined spaces, lockout, tagout, grounding, arc flash, job briefings, code-related injuries and illness, and pole top rescue. The training was very good. During the drafting of this report, towards the end of last week, the windstorm sent a tree through the distribution line near the dead-end pole across the highway from the hatchery. The pole had heavy damage, and the line crew worked on it for several days, finished it up Friday evening. So thank them very much for getting that done. The entire pole had to be replaced, as well as some of the line that was damaged by the tree. It was about 200 feet from the road, so it was out in the muskeg, which made it really difficult to get to. The hatchery and the homes that are out there were on backup power the whole time, and we just thanks to the crew for getting it done and following it all the way through till getting it done late Friday. Officer Wolf attended the Sexual Assault Response Training, or SART training, which was funded by WAVE. Thanks to them, Officer Wachter is working with the Petersburg Medical Center and EMS on the active shooter exercise that is scheduled with PMC, the Medical Center, on December 12th for 2018. Chief Kerr is also working with the U.S. Coast Guard on hosting an active shooter drills in Petersburg. Kind of early in the process, but at one point they were even talking about bringing 5 of the cutters here. Then their crews, along with the Petersburg Police Department, Petersburg Harbor Department, EMS, the Medical Center, and law enforcement agencies from around the state may also attend. We're still working on dates for the drill, possibly in February. I believe we even asked, the chief asked Ocean Beauty if they'd allow us to use their empty facility as kind of the training ground, so we'll see how that works out. All-Star basketball was successful at the gym. Wrangell won 3 out of the 4 games, unfortunately, but the kids had a great time, and then they headed to Wrangell this past weekend. Viking Swim Club also held November Rain. They did a fabulous job hosting the other teams and working with the staff. We had a full community center, and all went very, very well. Breakfast with Santa is coming up on Saturday, December 15th. We are seeking volunteers at the gym to run a game booth or table. Please contact Sarah Phillips at sphillips@petersburgak.gov if interested. Halloween Hustle and the Fall Fest 5K were both great events with good turnout. We partnered with the hospital for Halloween Hustle. The kids paraded over to long-term care and came back for the gym for dancing, food, and games. The staff did a great job and really brought out their creativity to make it a blast for all. The Fall Fest 5K was an event partnered with WAVE for the Let Me Run Kids group. Adults participated as well. The winner was the person who came closest to their estimated guests. Even though it was pouring down rain, the kids had smiles and were able to jump around on the bounce houses afterwards. And in Parks and Rec, we've had completed some big projects recently, both outside and inside, including some trail work, burials, fence building at Ira 2, install a new chlorine feeder for the lap pool, and fixing lights, finalizing some OSHA requirements, and subbing for the Manor while their maintenance person, JJ, was out. We still have some water leak in the in-floor heating system to fix. Unfortunately, we're looking for a maintenance person, so it may be a bit of time before we get to that one. And that's it, unless there's questions.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Questions from the manager? Member Mucci.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
So I guess for the electrical person, Carl, how do they get to that 200 feet from the highway to the pole?
Very carefully.
Member Mucci, that it was tough, but we used a small excavator. We walked it out there on some plastic mats, basically plywood size things, to get out there. It was made it interesting to get the new pole up. We had to dig a hole and then use the existing pole, which was a little shorter than it used to be, to do some blocking, and the crew did a great job, raising that pole out in the Muscate.
Great. Thank you.
Further questions for the manager? No? Okay. Thank you, Steve. Moving on, that brings us to, there is no unfinished business, so new business. Ordinance-18-19, an ordinance amending Petersburg Municipal Code, Section 4.28.020, sales tax definitions, to clarify that marine passenger ship cruise ticket contracts that are subject to Petersburg Borough marine passenger fee are not subject to Petersburg Borough sales tax. I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
The motion been made by Member Michi and second by Member Wolhuter. Discussion. Yes, Member Michi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this point, I'd like to just kind of see it go away. I'd like to see how, right now we have a sales tax ordinance in place. We have the marine passenger fee in place. The marine passenger fee goes into effect in 2019, and it just seems like at one time or another we get caught up in the minute details of this ordinance that we don't know how it's all going to play out until we see some visitors coming to town. I'm going to vote not to pass this just because I'd like to see how it goes for the first year, and if over the maybe 6 months, and if we see some strong pushback from the visitor industry or locals about how it's going, we can certainly change it at that time. But right now we have the sales tax ordinance in place, and we have the marine passenger fee in place, and I don't want to get lost in the details.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the clerk call the roll.
Okay. Jay.
No.
Kurt.
No.
Taylor.
No.
Jeff.
No.
Randy.
No.
Bob.
No.
And the motion fails on a 0-6 basis.
May I, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Just confirm, then we will not bring this forward for a second or third reading then?
Yep, yeah.
Okay.
The motion is dead, so to speak. Communications. We're going to go right into some of the discussion items. Recognitions. Any recognitions this evening? Member Lynn.
Having spent last week at Alaska Municipal League conference, I had a chance to sit in a couple sessions, one particularly related to budget policy that was kind of interesting. It came from Bend, one of the examples came from Bend, Oregon, but I'll have to tell you that our finance officer is 5 years ahead of what was presented there. Her budget policy that she's presented almost, I think it was about 5 years ago, is equal to or better than the one that was presented there as an example of what should be done. And my compliments to Jody.
Nice. Thank you, Member Lynn. And thank you, Jody, for your efforts. Further recognitions? All right. Let's roll into discussion. Oh yes, Harbor Master Wallen. Sorry, I didn't see you.
I just have to say thank you to Carl and Matt Briner for just putting up the very best tree I think we've ever had.
Just got it.
Okay, Chris Scott. No, but your power guys are putting the lights up around it, and they just really have done a great job, and I think the borough needs a little pat on the back for putting a good foot forward for being the leader on putting out your Christmas lights. That's my new thing. Christmas lights. Everybody put out Christmas lights.
Absolutely.
Good job.
Thank you, Harbor Master Wallen. All right. We'll move on to discussion item, which is the Member Mucci requested discussion item on Petro 49 proposed land exchange. Jeff, if you'd like to lead us out, feel free.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's no action proposed tonight, but I just wanted to give folks a heads up that I was going to have it on the agenda for the December 3rd meeting so that we could chat about it and see where we end up going with it. Hopefully everybody will be here. If not, we'll sort it out. But we have a proposal from Petro Marine to kind of make this land exchange work, and I would hope that we'd have a discussion at the December 3rd meeting, and if it works out in favor of doing this land exchange, then possibly having a work session, not a work session, but an executive session at the end of that meeting to give the city manager direction on negotiating this land exchange, one way or the other. But I just wanted to give folks heads up that I'm going to have it on the agenda at the next meeting so that we can kind of go one way or the other on it.
Thank you, Member Nucci. Anyone else want to comment on that discussion item this evening? Yes, go ahead, Member Nucci.
Yeah, in the last meeting, Mr. Mayor, we had a request from a member of the community that wanted to change the wording from the visitors' views related and unrelated to agenda items.
Oh, wait, hang on. So we're nothing else in the land exchange for now?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's going to bring us down to the Member Lynn's was letter C, finance and budget.
Go ahead. Good, Jeff.
Go ahead. No. Sorry, I saw the light come on up there, threw me off.
Okay. At the last meeting, we had a request from a community member that wanted to change the wording from visitors' views to persons' views related to agenda items. And I'll have that on the agenda item for the meeting of the 3rd as well.
As an action item?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Okay. Any comments or thoughts on that from the Assembly at this point? Yes.
I just
Member Noheim.
Maybe it should be pointed out that if she was offended by the visitor's views, I feel like it was probably more put on as like a visitor to the chambers here. It wasn't meant to be like, oh, you're not a member of this community, but just a visitor to here. And it was one of those quirky things where they probably just had trying to make the two letters match up.
Yeah, I did some digging around on the original context of that, and that was the implication of visitors to the chambers themselves.
Yeah.
Yes, as a point of clarification. Any further discussion on the visitors versus persons topic? Okay, Member Lynn, budget and finance.
Yeah, well, as I said before, I was at the Alaska Municipal League meeting last week, and there was a bunch of side sessions and so forth, and there was other sessions. I spent most of my time related to budget, and so my views here are mine. Here, Taylor would probably have some other ideas than the sessions he attended, but I'm looking at the budget in a number of ways. We had the commissioner revenue there, and I talked about this on the radio today, but his point was that the current administration leaves with a balanced budget. That said, he also told us that without any infrastructure projects whatsoever, that it takes $72 plus change to break even with the budget. In other words, for each year to break even. So it has to stay at least at that level or higher. He also told us that as it yo-yos through the day, and I think today the West Coast crude closed at $66 plus a barrel. But anyway, he said that it takes approximately $2 billion if you have a $20 a daily change of $20 over the whole year. I mean, I'm talking about ups and downs. It takes $2 billion to be able to fill those gaps. And so the long and the short of that story comes that I don't think there's going to be very much money available for infrastructure projects. And I also left with the conclusion that we're going to be suffering from some other things. What I heard from the new administration is that they're really not looking towards municipalities per se. They have their own agenda, other things on mind. So with that, we can probably expect some changes in revenue sharing, changes in maybe in some of the other functions that are the other money we receive from the state. And I don't think it's going to be to the good. I think it's going to be to the bad. That said, I'll hold it a minute. I got some other ideas here, but I will. Taylor, did you have any other thoughts or different than I had, or
on
budget? Yeah, on budget or anything like that, or
no, not really. And then, like I think I told you there that 2 of the 4 conferences I went to ended up had nothing to do with Southeast when I got there and sat through even those. I thought there would be, but there wasn't.
Yeah, I ended up doing 1 or 2 of those too. Well, anyhow, that said, I'd like to see us as part of the budget policy. I'd like to see 2 different things now. I think we need to do what I'm going to call a risk assessment, a risk analysis, you might say, of funds. And by that, I would do this over a 5-year period. I think we as Assembly need to see what we expect to, like for instance here, which funds do we expect to be at very high risk, moderate risk, low risk, and I'm not arguing how we would put that, but I would like to see what problems we might run into, and I'd like to see that projected out for a number of years, because I would like to be able to do whatever we can to put some stability in this, whatever budget we come up with. And have we had some idea what that might be? I think a risk assessment might help. And I see that being done up front before we get into all the nitty-gritty details, that type of thing, to what kind of problems that folks foresee, and a discussion on that. The second part of that is that I had a chance to talk with both Senator Murkowski's and Senator Sullivan's state aides. They talked a little bit about there may be some infrastructure money come available. They weren't really hopeful that, a lot of it would come to Alaska, because we're not, compared to the lower 48 and the amount of people, et cetera, we're not high on the priority list, essentially what they were saying. But I think it behooves us to at least get, and what I'd like to propose is that we go back. I know we had some 5-year plans for each of the enterprise funds, but I think it's time we go back and we resurrect those five-year plans for each of the enterprise funds, and that we put some priority on those. Because if we could, as an assembly, agree on what's a priority, and if we could actually find a way to fund maybe some engineering and stuff to do what I'll call some shovel-ready projects, we would be in a much better position to be able to fight for some of those other funds down the road. And that's kind of what I came back with, at least my thoughts on it. And I'll leave it open if you have questions of me or Taylor or what have you, or the manager for that matter.
Any further discussion on the budget topic? I think I'll just add one thing. I found myself this last week thinking about, the budget comes up in the spring, and along the lines of what Member Lynn was talking about, some of those things, that there will be less state money, and the fact that our finance director and borough manager have been working pretty hard to keep us a balanced budget, and the reality is it's getting harder and harder, and you get into a situation where you have to start looking at reductions, and I think as a community, we have this quality of life that we've come to love and enjoy because it makes this our home, Petersburg. But those are going to be some really uncomfortable discussions moving forward in the borough budget process. Because we all have things we feel are critically important in terms of infrastructure, hours, etc. And I think I just want to give the community a heads up. That's something I'm definitely going to be focusing on in the discussion topics of where can we reduce without feeling a major loss in terms of services or quality of life. And one thing I think the state has really struggled with is the idea of reductions plus gaining revenue. You can't just tax your way into a balanced budget, and you can't just cut your way into a balanced budget. You need to find a way to balance raising revenues and a reduction of some services. And it is not going to be easy. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that I look forward to having those uncomfortable discussions with members of the community and the Assembly. Any further discussion on the topic? Member Meach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't want to prolong the meeting any longer than it's going, but, the whole budget process, it's a living, breathing document, and, we can wait for Jody to give us a budget policy document, but, I've already turned in a list of things that I'd like to see reduced and eliminated. For me, that's where I want to start. We hear the community talk about, oh yeah, we want to make city government smaller. So I have suggested some ideas about making government smaller. It's hard to get the community to commit about what they don't think is important. Some of my ideas aren't going to be very popular, but that's fine. I mean, that's what we're up here for, is to make those tough decisions, and they're not going to be easy decisions. If they were easy decisions, then it'd be fun up here, but it's painful from time to time. And I think, we passed a ballot initiative that said we want to continue the entitlement for people who are over 65. So we have to sort out where we're going to come up with those funds. how we're going to balance the budget with those issues as well. And I'm willing to look at every department and every public service that we offer, or whether it's KFSK or the library, the museum, senior meals. I mean, we need to look at all that stuff. And that's just part of the budget process. And I'm willing to deal with those kind of things. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Amici. Further discussion? Member Norham.
I'd just like to, I don't know, my feelings on it are you kind of have a responsibility to take care of the children and the elderly and everything in between. You need to take care of yourself at some point. So when it comes time to cut things, maybe it should be more in the middle and not so much on the young and the old.
Cool. Thank you, Member Norham. Further discussion? In that case, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved by Member Mucci, second by Member Wolholder. All those in favor say aye. Aye.